This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross. Our smartphones and electric vehicles, emblems of the modern world, are powered by workers in slave-like conditions, mining for cobalt in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Cobalt is an essential component of the rechargeable batteries used in devices and EVs. Electric vehicles are supposed to be a big part of the solution to lowering carbon emissions. But cobalt mining in the Congo is not only a human catastrophe, it's an environmental disaster. Congo has more reserves of cobalt than the rest of the planet combined, but there's no such thing as a clean supply chain of cobalt from the Congo, writes my guest, Siddharth Kara.
And welcome to The Truth is Simple. I'm Dave Corm, your host. Today is Tuesday, April 29th, 2024. We're going to be talking about, if you haven't heard, weren't listening, we're going to be talking about EV vehicles and the battery packs that are going inside of those. We're going to talk a lot about environmental issues with EV batteries. The rare minerals, they're called rare for a reason because there's not a lot of them. I tried to do a little bit of research as to how many rare minerals, the minerals that make these EV batteries and so forth, how many there actually are out there, how much there actually is known to be out there at this point. There might be some deposits that might be found in the future. But right now, as the known deposits, we're looking at somewhere around a 40 to maybe an 80-year, probably 60-year time frame as far as these materials being around. Automobiles, gasoline, petroleum, coal, they've been around for 150 years or so, thereabouts, and longer for coal. We've been using that for a bit longer in the early 1800s when the steam engines and those types of things started to come around. We started to burn coal to run our steam-powered engines and so forth. So and create heat for us in our houses, and then eventually run our power plants, which they still do today. In fact, China has more power plants and is polluting the world's atmosphere, the environment, at a rate almost 2 times that of the United States. And our economy is bigger than theirs still, not by much, but still bigger, and they're continuing to build coal power plants at this time right now. So, but we're talking about EV batteries and the rare minerals, which we have maybe somewhere between 40 to tops 80 years of minerals left. A lot can happen technology-wise between now and then, and so we may need them for the 40 years. But if you look at the past, and that's a picture of the future, it's not a good portrayal of where we're going to be going over the next 40 years with power in vehicles and so forth and so on here in the world, not just the United States, but in the world. We just listened to an NPR vocal at the very beginning of our podcast today, and it talks about the Congo, where cobalt, 70% of the world's known cobalt, is being mined to produce these batteries that go in these cars. These people that are living in the Congo, it's one of the poorest countries in Africa, if not poorest countries in the world. The kids are working in enslavement. They're helping and sorting and digging in these mines at a very early age. You'll see a video shortly here with a child about 4 years old, but everyone from basically 4 or as soon as they can start sorting stuff. They're working somehow or carrying bags, and they're making literally nothing in a living. They are poor. They got nothing. The government of Congo has sold, if you want to talk about colonialism, like we did in the very end, I think, of the last video I did. We had a little guy with a flag in the middle of, on a hill, showing colonialism. Well, our biggest colonial power right now is China. They are the colonial country. They are purchasing the rights to all these raw materials and so forth in these other countries so they can control the markets going forward, and then determine the price and determine who's going to control the industry, who's going to create these products in the future. And when you let a communist country like China take over control, where then you can figure there's going to be a lack of rare minerals and materials in the future going forward. They can really squeeze it down once they have total control of it and charge any price they basically want for those rare earth materials and batteries and so forth that we take for granted, that are not only in our EV cars, but they're also in our cell phones and many other things that we use that have a lithium ion type battery in it. But we're talking about colonialism in Africa in the 1600s through the mid 1900s. Most of Africa was a colonized by Europe. Europeans were there, but since the late 1800s and through the 1900s, all the countries of Africa have since taken over their own governments and their own countries, and have taken care of their own political systems and who and what they've become. Like I said, cobalt has 70% of the world's the Democratic Republic of Congo has 70% of the world's known cobalt at this point. Could some be found in the future? Of course, there's always some that be found. We just found a large lithium maybe about 25 years ago, which there wasn't a big need for it. But it's moving rapidly in northern Nevada here, the Thacker Pass. It's because it's lithium, because we're going in that direction. All the environmental factors that would normally hold true for oil and coal and so forth are just being bypassed by the government to bring this lithium mine online and start producing lithium here in the United States. It's one of the largest in the world as far as what possible lithium mines. It's said to going to be running for about 20 to 40 years, creating 80 metric tons, I believe, 80,000 metric tons of lithium every year. This is going to be kind of like a strip mine where they're digging in the ground and pulling the resource out, as opposed to where most of the world's lithium comes from, which is in South America and a little triangle between Chile, I think it's Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina, if I'm not wrong. And a little triangle, high desert triangle there, that's taking groundwater out of the ground and pumping it onto the surface, which has the lithium minerals in it, and where it's then allowed to evaporate to get to the powder, the mineral. What a waste of water. Not only are they using the water that's underground, but they're using some fresh water as well to pull these minerals out of the ground. So they pump it in the ground basically and suck it back out and let it evaporate. So fresh water is being used in the same manner. That's also going to be a technique used to some aspect up in northern Nevada in the Thacker mine. There is another mine in Nevada as well that uses that same thing. They call it brine water. So it's the water that has these minerals and so forth in it. They suck it out of the ground and it comes up, and they just let it sit in pools on top of the surface and let it evaporate away. So it's a waste of a natural resource to some aspect, if you want to say that. And people living in those regions therefore have a lack of farmers and other peoples that raise animals and so forth in those areas are losing their fresh water, and the areas are becoming unlivable. Something to think about when you're driving your EV vehicle, or if you're thinking about purchasing an EV vehicle in the future. I'll bring this up real quick. I spent a lot of time looking stuff up on this subject and topic. There's a ton of videos out there on YouTube, stuff that I kind of showed. You just heard an NPR vocal at the very front of this talking about cobalt, and that's one of the rare materials used in the production of these EV batteries, electric vehicles, lithium-ion batteries. And 70% comes from Africa, where these people, little kids, age 4 through adults, are being sacrificed by us. We talk about saving the world and helping the environment. but yet this country is being totally destroyed, and the people that are living there are being totally medically injured and hurt, and a lot of them are having issues with childbirth defects and so forth and so on. I brought up this list right here so you can kind of see it. Bring me back up with it a little bit. So lots of websites I've visited and so forth, and there's a lot of negative. There are some good things about batteries, EV batteries and so forth. Over the long term, meaning if you're buying an EV vehicle, depending on which type of vehicle you're buying, some of the lesser brands that are made by Hyundai and Toyota that have a little bit smaller batteries in them, or that are possibly a kind of a hybrid battery system, those are not quite as bad as, I hate to say it, your Tesla, which uses a much bigger battery pack and a bigger power and battery system. Why? Because the cars weigh a lot. Ford truck that might normally weigh 1,500 truck might weigh somewhere around 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. The new electric Ford truck weighs over 9,200 pounds. 9,200 pounds. So it's probably about twice the weight of the regular gas burning vehicle. You have to have stronger batteries and more batteries to make sure that thing can be propelled for the distance, the 200 to 300 miles you want for range in that vehicle. And that's just the way it is. There's other problems with it too, as far as the battery packs after they've expired. The technology has gotten better. The first battery packs that have come out, they estimate about 5 to 7, 8 years. They're now saying maybe up to 20 years from some of these. But we talk about fast charging, right, as being a priority, because we don't want to go park your car at a charger if you can find one that actually works somewhere, and and sit there for the next hour and a half to 2 hours to let your battery charge before you can get back on the road and driving again. One of the reasons why Hertz was all in on EV vehicles and now has decided to sell or get rid of all their EV vehicles because of that range problem and charging problem with these vehicles. They get all their cars in at the end of the day, and they got to sit somewhere at these power banks charging for hours before they can re-rent them again. People taking cars, they're driving distances. They're not just staying in a city, they're taking a vacation. They're driving from big city to a park or to another state or something like that. They're having issues with that too. They don't want to be stuck somewhere with their kids in the back seat taking a 4-hour trip and making it into an 8 or a 12-hour trip because they have to recharge their batteries on a continuous basis. So big issues with that on range and power stations for that. The cost of it, initially it was free, but now a lot of these charging stations are charging you to power your vehicle. They got to make money. They got to get money back somehow on all these stations they're putting up and repair and replace them. Some of the stations don't work on all the vehicles. So if you have a vehicle that's not uniform, mostly with probably the Tesla vehicles, which is sort of becoming, I think, from what I researched, the standard, then you're in trouble. You're not going to be able to power your vehicle in the future at any of these charging stations that are around the city and around the highways and freeways where you're driving. Maintenance problems too. They just break down. Cold weather, another issue with vehicles. They lose anywhere from 2/3, probably half their power charge in cold weather, and some just fail right off. They won't even charge. The vehicles won't charge in the cold weather. And we found that out this last winter when we had that real cold weather that went through the Northeast, and electric cars were just left parked in no man's land or at charging stations that wouldn't charge the batteries because they're cold. So you have those issues. But let's jump back to here. I brought up this sheet on the monitor there. Videos that I've reviewed and watched and so forth. I'm going to ask you, look at this. You could go back and do your own review, and you can look at these videos that I put up. Some news reports here. This came out of Africa. I think it was in the Congo. On Sunday afternoon, March 23rd, Darlington Vito was shot in the head outside an industrial lithium mine in Zimbabwe. Masavingo province in Zimbabwe. A subsistence miner, meaning this is what he did for his life. He went and mined for lithium and minerals to sell to make money for him and maybe his family, had been seen searching for chunks of ore in a rubble pile when a security guard at the mine site fired his weapon without warning. And he shot him in the head and killed him, basically. It didn't say it killed him right away, but he went into the hospital and eventually died. Things like that. So take a look at this. I'm going to scroll through it real slowly here for you. Other websites you can go check right here. We're going to talk about this one and this gentleman. The voiceover you heard at the very beginning is in regards to this link right here that's on the screen. And this is the gentleman that wrote the book right here. Siddharth Kara writes about the people in the Congo and the hardships they're living through in these mines. You can see here doing these things. We get down a little farther, you can see a little more information on the North America's largest lithium mine, which is that Thacker Pass mine right here. That's what it looks like today. This is probably what it's going to look like in the future. That's not the same area, but that's the kind of mining they're going to be doing there. And then we have the top countries. There are more elements that I have listed here, but these are the top 4 elements that are going into EV batteries. Lithium being the most well known because we call them lithium ion batteries. Cobalt, like I said, manganese and nickel. So we'll look at that and see some of the countries, and it's going to surprise you. Some of these, and a lot of these rare minerals are only available in countries that we are not in favor with. In China, Russia right now, and Brazil, which is turning towards China and communism. South Africa, which is the same, turning towards Chinese and communism. Countries like that. Southeastern Asia, which has the same issue with China being in the neighborhood and communism. China and Russia are buying these minerals. The minerals I talked about, the lithium mines in South America, in that big area that sits on top of the desert plains there, between Peru, I think it's Bolivia and Argentina. The Chinese have bought the mineral rights to the lithium there, as well as they're buying the mineral rights in China. They bought the mineral rights in the Congo. You want to talk about today's colonialism? It is China doing all these things, buying all these mineral rights in all these different countries, and then taking those minerals back to China so they can control it and around the world and how we live. It should be scaring you as far as that goes. It's more than just EV batteries is what we're seeing in the world. Let's take a quick look at, I'm going to bring up the first video. This is going to review a little bit of what's going on in the Congo. It is a video by Sky News, which I think is out of Australia. And you need to know, these are the electric cars we're all buying, that we're all wanting to use, and it's scary. So without further ado, I hope it's going to play. Here we go.
This is one of the thousands of unregulated, unmonitored mines in the DRC. It's crawling with children, working like modern-day slaves. A 12-hour-long day of punishing work may earn them the equivalent of £1. Although one of the poorest countries on earth, DRC is rich in minerals. But a history of brutal colonial exploitation looks like being repeated now in 2017. Much of it's mined by hand, with rudimentary tools in harsh, potentially hazardous conditions. And wretched whether or not, the rush is on for a mineral the DRC has in great abundance, cobalt, and it's fast becoming more precious than gold. It's a critical ingredient in lithium-ion batteries which power smartphones and laptops. An army of children are at the heart of the mining production. Wearing no shoes and in the most wretched conditions, Dorsan is ordered to retrieve the sack he's forgotten. There's an urgency now. The rains make this dangerous work even more risky, and Dorsan's told in no uncertain terms he risks a beating if he messes up again. Dorsan, with Richard beside him, have worked all day. They're 8 and 11 years old. Even this punishing work doesn't guarantee enough for food. Dorsan hasn't eaten for 2 days now. This is what helpless looks like, and he's one of the children making millions for multinational corporations in America and China whilst they suffer in squalor. For this, they'll get maybe 8 British pence a day. The tunnels are dug by hand with no supports. They frequently collapse, especially during rain. The miners climb down using holes carved in the rock and no safety equipment. This most precious of minerals is often extracted and sorted by tiny hands. They don't wear gloves or masks, yet the World Health Organization says exposure to cobalt and breathing in its dust fumes can cause long-term health problems. We visited 5 different mines across the south of DRC and found all use child workers. Monica's the youngest worker in this group at just 4. But even those barely able to walk have lost their childhoods to mining. Natalie's 12 years old. My fingers hurt, she tells us. Miles away on a different site, Makumba Mateba shows us the cobalt tunnel he's dug with 3 of his friends. It's physically tough work. They removed all this rock by hand over nearly 4 months.
It's incredibly insecure for them, although this is really rich in minerals and it's going down just 15 metres. There's no support bars, they have no protective masks or protective equipment at all. And right at the bottom I can see water.
It's his village's water which Makumba's convinced has caused his health problems. After a lifetime of drinking it, he has a huge tumour on his throat.
Quand on est en train de travailler à Kitowe, là on cultive la tomate, en train de cultiver, si j'ai soif, je pars puiser de l'eau.
There are countless reports of other health problems from those living nearby and working on the mines.
On trouve les infections, minimum infection, je retourne à Onako. Kasi mama anatumika makariere sana, tazama mtoto na infection shulungula, mwingine kuna bima buton, mwingine ndio tunaona donc makozi linatoka mama mimi banenda makariere.
These twins are just 2 days old, and although small, so far they're healthy, to the relief of their mother.
Hii maminere ishu naleta maproblem kama wewe mwanamke unaenda kutumika hako. Inaleta maproblem difficulty kama kuna mimba. Bo shi mwanamke ni mama yangu kunetupeleka kukwesa mama yangu kunetupeleka tunaenda kutumika.
But even if they stay healthy, the twins face a lifetime of hard labour as soon as they can walk.
There you have it, in a nutshell, right there. It's sad that we take for granted these batteries, and we're being pushed by our government. Everything is not as peaceful and as clean as we think it is in the world. We think we're saving the world right here by going to battery vehicles. When the truth and fact that Thacker Pass mine is, when it's in full production, is going to be producing CO2 emissions into the atmosphere similar to that of a small city of about 100,000 people or more. So while there's nobody there, there's people living in that area. These miners that are going to be working there are going to be working in a toxic area on a day-to-day basis. The people that live just south of there in Winnemucca and other areas in southern or kind of northern, south of there, but in northern Nevada, and those that are living possibly north into Idaho because it's close to the Idaho-Nevada border, they too might be suffering some of the consequences of the mine materials that are going to get into the atmosphere and so forth and so on. You can look at the video here. I have it up on the screen so you can take a look at that. I want to pop to the second one. We're not going to watch this whole thing. It's pretty long, but I want you to also take into context, look at this video as well. It does a similar study as far as what we just watched really quick through Sky News. Another news organization, world news organization, I have not heard of them before, but that doesn't mean a whole lot, right? Because there's news organizations all over the world. But I want you to see this as well, at least a portion of it. I might skip up a little bit on it, but here we go.
These stones have become crucial to our way of life. They are called cobalt, essential in green technologies from electric cars to rechargeable batteries. But while its stock price is predicted to soar, there are minerals that are worth billions of dollars. The people who live and work here are paying a heavy price.
This acid.
Acid.
Yeah.
Siku ndimuzalaka badadangu mtoto kanyuyu.
The Democratic Republic of Congo, or the DRC, is sitting on nearly 20 trillion pounds of natural resources. It should be one of the richest countries in the world. Instead, most people here live on less than £1.50 a day. Backed up and ready to sell, 70% of the world's cobalt comes from the DRC. It's a critical component in batteries for electric cars. But helping rich countries hit their environmental targets comes at a cost to the people who mine it, like Emmanuel and Robert.
Do you have family?
Around a quarter of the country's cobalt comes from these makeshift operations called artisanal mines. They are run by a local cooperative of miners who get a license from the government. There are so many little tents all over this place. Under it, there are holes. They're told as some as deep as 100 meters. These young men go down to dig for minerals. You see these bags? They are minerals. This will be taken to the cobalt market to be sold to international buyers. Emmanuel wants to show us what the mine is like, but insisting it's too dangerous for me, he agrees to take a camera instead. While I wait above, Emmanuel clambers down what looks like an endless dark tunnel. In fact, Emmanuel descends for ages as the mine never seems to end.
Imuchina tenka. Itawa unanene tufuata mule we.
Mushibambe tena kunkamba. Kama usema sasa na kuvinya kushuka una bloke panga.
These men do this every day. These young men do this every day. So for them, it's a day job, but it's a very risky job. It's a very, very risky job because imagine going deep underground in darkness and just digging for something. This could collapse at any moment. They meet a team of diggers taking a break.
Jambo etu.
Not only are they going down on the spine, but you have to remember
It isn't the only team down here.
It doesn't flow freely down into this hole either. And there's not
In fact, there are many working multiple channels, all following whatever seam of cobalt they can find. And when they find it, they set to work getting it ready for the market.
Huku njo kukata huku njo ashikuweka mu mansaka.
Fanya mizi musaka, fanya mizi musaka. Yobyote njo vingi.
They work long hours with barely room to move.
Sasa munaishi munespire tu bien.
Respiration
atupatie mo.
They earn about £3 a day, more than most in the DRC, but it's still very low. Artisanal mines like this are built in the shadows of vast industrial mines. The huge pits provide the bulk of the world's cobalt. Every industrial cobalt mine is majority owned or operated by foreign countries. Usually it's the Chinese, while the DRC itself owns only a minority stake in most mines.
So this new little Wi-Fi camera is taking the US by storm. This brand new subscription-free mini
Just a few years ago, Kolwezi was a sleepy town, but it has been transformed. Anywhere you go, towns and cities across the world, you see monuments of heroes, leaders, and important figures. But here in Kolwezi, they celebrate miners and their equipment. This just shows how important mining is for this community and for the country in general. But scientists and doctors are increasingly concerned about its impact on public health, because pregnant women in this region have concentrations of heavy metals in their blood that are among the highest ever reported. The artisanal mine has important visitors.
So I encourage you to watch the rest of that video. They go more in depth. You can look at the oxygen in the air that they're breathing in there and all these toxins they're sucking into their lungs. So EV vehicles are not, clean to some aspect. I watched a video, another video. That's all I did. Watch all these videos. I'm going to go down a list here kind of in a minute or two and talk about some of these things. But I wanted to talk about the Thacker mine too, which is, let's do a quick look at the Bolivia area I just told you about. I'm going to show a quick little snippet of that video as well, real quick. So you can just kind of get a gesture and idea where that's at in the world. This is the largest lithium
beneath
mine
Bolivia's Beneath Bolivia's surreal salt flats sits the largest deposit of lithium in the world. And now Chinese and Russian energy companies are getting ready to mine it.
China and Russia.
The lightweight metal is known as white gold because it's essential for making rechargeable batteries that power things like computers, mobile phones, and electric cars. Global production has nearly quadrupled over the last decade, but it's still not enough. So battery manufacturers around the world are eyeing up the lithium triangle, the name given to the high-altitude salt flats in Bolivia, Chile and Argentina. This is where over half of the world's known supply of lithium is stored.
Tenemos la mejor salmuera con un alto porcentaje de litio.
The lithium here in Chile is locked away in underground saltwater, or brine. Billions of gallons are pumped to the surface every year, where it is left to evaporate and concentrate. Mining companies also use millions of gallons of fresh water, and in one of the driest places on Earth, locals are scared of what that will do to their already scarce water supplies. And they worry they
So there you have it. What I was talking about a few minutes ago, about using up all the fresh water in the area. So the people that live there, you can see it's a pretty arid area there, looking at the picture in the background behind the resident or the person that lives there. He raises animals and had a small farm, and he's had to relocate it to where the river that was his source of water has dried up, basically. The water table has dropped substantially in the area from all this lithium mining, and it's only going to get worse in those areas as well. I want to show you another video real quick, and this is a Thacker mine. Again, I'm not going to show you the whole thing. You're able to see right here where it's at. This is on YouTube. You guys can go and check this out for yourself as well. So, you know, it's upon you to do a little bit of your own investigation. Like that, I found some of the material for you.
We talk about it a lot on this channel. It's one of the key minerals to a world where everyone drives electric vehicles. Lithium. We talk about it a lot on this channel. It's one of the key minerals to a world where everyone drives electric vehicles, and we're going to need a lot more of it. According to Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, by 2035, the world will need an additional 74 lithium mines with an average annual production of 45,000 tons per mine. Right now, most of that lithium is produced in Australia and Chile. But in the US, we have President Biden pushing to bring more secure lithium production back home. But there's one project that's been hotly contested, the Thacker Pass lithium mine. There's been plenty of pushback. Environmentalists and indigenous communities have fought hard to prevent the project from entering production. Today, it looks like the project is moving forward, and I thought it would be a valuable exercise to get into Thacker Pass, its history, and why it's been such a highly polarizing project for decades. Let's dive in. Thacker Pass is owned and operated by Lithium Americas. It's a development stage open pit lithium clay project in Humboldt County, Nevada. The magnitude of the mine is impressive. Encompassing a vast 18,000 acres, it's known as the largest lithium deposit in the US and stands tall amongst the largest globally. But that's not the only thing big about the project. Once fully in production, it's estimated that the mine will be able to produce 80,000 tons per year of lithium carbonate with a planned mine life of 40 years. For context, 80,000 tons of lithium carbonate would be over 15% of the current amount produced globally today. The overall project is estimated to hold 3.7 million tons of lithium carbonate, which is enough lithium for over 59 million Tesla batteries. And for the nerds out there, the project is expected to generate average annual EBITDA of $1.2 billion. That's over $1 billion in EBITDA per year, to give a sense of the magnitude. But with that magnitude, naturally gives way to equally large problems. Unsurprisingly, the Thacker Pass project has faced countless challenges from environmentalists. With big projects come big environmental impacts. Along with a coalition of local ranchers and residents, central to their concern is the degradation of the land from the operation of the mine. In terms of environmental impact, some of the concerns are certainly valid. The project is expected to produce over 150,000 tons of CO2 annually, emissions similar to a small city. And the mine is forecasted to consume 1.7 billion gallons of water every year. For a region already grappling with droughts, that's a major problem. This rush towards lithium, although driven by the noble intent to transition away from fossil fuels, is seen by some as precipitating a new era of green energy-driven ecocide. Max Wilbert, an environmental organizer camping out at Thacker Pass, summed up the sentiments of many opponents by equating lithium mining with coal mining in terms of its environmental cost. Wilbert, along with others, is prepared to put himself directly in harm's way to halt the project, illustrating the profound depth of their convictions. And in terms of lawsuits, the environmentalists have certainly made a valiant effort to...
So there you have it too, just like I said a few minutes ago. The environmental impact there is going to affect, it's about the size of a small city. The CO2 is going into the air. That's before a car is even manufactured. I could show you a quick video. It's on my cheat sheet here. I guess I need to pop back up on the screen. There you go. All right. Technology is wonderful, right? Oh, I think it's down here. Well, we could look at all the minerals in the world, but I think possibly you could do that yourself. Oh, it's not on here. It's on a different page. Let me go back up here and see if I can open that up real quick. Oh, actually, you know what? It's a video, so I think it's this one right here. The big EV lie. Right? Let's throw that back up on the screen so you can see it. The big EV lie. Here we go. Blow that up. Bam. Oh, what's that going to do? Yeah, okay, that's good. And of course, we got to run a commercial.
This $99 drone has something the military doesn't want you to see. Up until recently, this high-tech special forces...
That's a different one. Wrong one, sorry. That's a very good video too, though. The big EV lie. It's about electric cars. This guy goes really in depth into EVs and the good parts about them and the negative parts about them. He brings it on. He talks about the rare materials. He talks about the cost to produce a car. He talks about the EV on the back end, the batteries, and so forth. So it's a pretty good video that I think you should take into context and watch. I'm going to see if I can find that other one real quick. It was one of these. American refused to buy EVs. I think this one's it. Yeah. I think this is it. All right. Oh, yeah. 2 to 7 metric tons of CO2 average per production vehicle for electric car, which is more than a combustion vehicle. So building these vehicles are more CO2 intense than... Anyway, I'm going to let him speak for himself. Here you go.
Now, every single study I looked at agreed that electric cars require more CO2 emissions to produce than gasoline-powered cars. And this is primarily because of the batteries, so they range from about 15% more emissions to about 70% more emissions. Now, this percentage is based on the size of the battery, so a small Nissan Leaf battery will require about 1/3 of the carbon emissions to produce versus a larger Tesla battery. So it's important when you're buying an electric car that you buy the right size battery for your needs. For the purposes of this video, we're going to give the combustion engine every benefit of the doubt, and so we're going to assume that both of these vehicles require the same baseline of emissions to produce them, assuming you don't include the emissions required for the battery. And this is a safe assumption to make because most studies show that an electric car would actually have less emissions than producing an internal combustion car if it weren't for the battery. So we're going to start with that common baseline, and we'll add on.
Which doesn't make sense. Why are you going to... The vehicle in and of itself runs from the batteries. Without the batteries, you have frickin' nothing. You have a cart. You push it downhill, you can get some animals to pull you or something, but the batteries is the lifeblood of the vehicle. The motor and the gas is the lifeblood of a combustion vehicle. So he's saying, if we took the car, the electric car, but we didn't take the batteries and we take the combustible car, the combustion burning car, it's about the same CO2 emissions to build. Awesome, right? But then you throw in the batteries and the CO2's on the go way up on the electric car. So he works for the electric industry, the motor industry. So even though he really tries to stay unbiased, or he sounds like he's trying to stay unbiased, he's not unbiased, and he works for an electric vehicle racing company that are transitioning from combustible motors into electric motors, which, you know, have a lot more power, a lot more torque, and can accelerate a lot faster and so forth. Makes sense. The cars are going to be heavier, of course, because the batteries are very heavy. They're basically rocks. And you take these various types of rocks, you put them together, melt them in a certain way, and they are able to store electric power. But they're rocks, they're minerals. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to let you look at this if you want in the future. I'm going to shrink it back down so you can get the website. So you can see his website right there. Again, it's a YouTube video, so you can go right on YouTube and get the information yourself and watch the whole video. Okay, I'm going to kind of transition from all the environmental stuff, which is crazy. So if you look at all that, the health, the human factor on the people living in the Congo, and it's just not the Congo, the people living in South America in that triangle area that are losing their water table. You know, it's becoming more and more of a desert. Their lifestyle and the effects on them. The waste of water, letting it just evaporate into thin air and then scooping up what's left. Kind of crazy again, right? But that's the way some mining works. And then you look at here in the United States, the Thacker mine up in northern Nevada. There is another smaller lithium mine in kind of central Nevada, which uses the same water technique, the brine pumping the water out, plus some fresh water to pump minerals out of the ground, puts it in these ponds and just lets it evaporate. And that's how they're able to get to these minerals. So it's not all as environmentally friendly as they will have you believe these electric batteries are. Let's look at kind of the electric car. There's videos on, I saw one which was very pro-electric car. They said everything they could negative about CO2s and how much it costs to transport the CO2s from wherever it's coming from and making oil out of it and gasoline and so forth gasoline out of the oil and so forth. They talked about the wear and tear on the cars, all these other little parts that cost to make this and that in the vehicles and so forth. They did a really good job about saying all the negatives of CO2 vehicles versus EVs, but they didn't tell you about the health hazards here. They didn't tell you about the mines. They didn't tell you about the enslavement. They didn't tell you about the control of China and Russia and all these other countries coming in and taking mineral rights from countries that have these minerals. They didn't tell you about the mine up here in Nevada that's going to send up the CO2 emissions in the air the size of a small city. They didn't tell you any of that. They just said CO2 cars are bad, right? And you should be driving a green vehicle. The gentleman we just watched on that video right there, he kind of takes it through time. He shows how CO2 vehicles are cleaner initially over the life of that vehicle. It generally ran from about 18 months to about, depending on the vehicle. So he talked about the Nissan Leaf. That's one of the vehicles that in and of itself, it gets cleaner faster because it uses less batteries and they're cheaper to make and so forth and so on, as opposed to a Tesla, which weighs a ton, has a lot bigger battery packs and so forth in it, which takes anywhere from about, I think he said 3 to 5 years to transition to being cleaner than CO2. 5 years. What is the life of a vehicle? Most of us are probably keeping our vehicles longer now. I have a 20-year-old Dodge truck sitting in my driveway, and my Jeep that I just bought is a 2015, but it only had 36,000 miles on it, which I just had to have the heads rebuilt because the thermostat went out. So the vehicles are expensive, right? But still gas combustible. I mean, I'm able to still drive these vehicles and not have to worry about stuff. Other effects. The average electric vehicle is anywhere from 5, depending on the type of vehicle you're buying for a competitive CO2 vehicle, combustion engine, is anywhere from 5 to about $30,000 more. And to contrast that, the Ford, I think F-150, is around a $55,000 vehicle at its base level. If you were to buy their electric version, it's about a $65,000 or $75,000 vehicle at the base. So therefore, you can see the difference there. They try to negate that cost of the vehicle based upon rebates you get from the federal government and or from state and local governments. A lot of those rebates are disappearing, and to be honest with you, a lot of those rebates don't even cover a lot of the cars that are on the market now, because it depends on who makes and manufactures the batteries in that vehicle and what type of battery they are. So just because you're buying a electric vehicle doesn't mean you're going to get the government discount anymore. Initially, it was it covered most vehicles, but today that's not true. So the cost up front for an EV is more than a CO2 engine. So these are additional costs to you if you're going to buy an EV vehicle. Tires. I didn't realize this, or I didn't realize the weight, but I think I said that same F-150 truck weighs, I'm thinking, somewhere around 4,500 pounds, the combustible engine. The battery-powered truck weighs about 9,500 pounds. It weighs 4,000 to 5,000 pounds more per vehicle than the combustion vehicle. What kind of power do you need to have to not only push, but to maintain that vehicle moving down the road? And what about the wheels on the bottom, right? That's a big issue too. From the research I've done, EV vehicles wear out their tires a lot faster because the vehicle's heavier. So you have more touch in the road, heavier weights touching the road. The tires are different. They have to be specifically made sometimes for a specific vehicle. So you have that cost as well. At around 10,000 miles, you're replacing EV vehicle tires, 10 to 15,000 miles. The research I found, an average Tesla tire runs about $500 to replace. So every year you're going to have a $2,000 cost of replacing tires, roughly every year, right? If you're driving 10,000 miles a year, you're going to be replacing tires every year. Get used to that. I had a Toyota 4Runner in 1991. I bought that vehicle. It had the Desert Doolers Bridgestone tires on it. Bought it brand new with brand new tires on it. I sold that same vehicle with the same tires on it at about 110,000 miles. The Jeep that I just bought, I'm pretty sure those are the original tires on there too. 40,000 miles now on the Jeep. They still have about half the life of the tires are still on half the life is still left on those tires right now. My truck, same thing. It's a 20-year-old vehicle built in 2004. I replaced those tires 10 years ago. It's the same tires on there right now. So you're going to have that cost of tire replacement. Maintenance. Combustibles, because we've had the industry around for so long, you're able to get it fixed. And you're able to find technicians that can work on your vehicle. Because EVs are so specifically made by specific manufacturers, and it may over time lessen the repair costs and replacement fixed parts, panels and so forth on EV vehicles is substantially much higher than combustible engine vehicles. So you're going to have that cost too, maintenance and wear and tear. Now you don't have to do the oil changes and so forth, but you still have to do the routine maintenance on EV vehicles as well, which is more costly because you have to take it back most likely to the dealership where you bought the vehicle, which usually is more expensive than the guy down the street at the garage. So you're looking at that additional cost as well. Accidents. Oh, this is a big one. I didn't really think about it. But, I put solar panels on my roof in California. I was a public and traffic safety commissioner, and I had a conversation with the fire chief in Temecula, and I said, I just got some solar cells put on my roof, and he said, they're not on my roof, they're on the back hill. He says, yeah, that's a big issue. If we show up to your house and you have solar panels on, there's a good chance we're not going to let you put the fire out. We're just going to let your house burn down. Now, I don't think that's exactly true. I think they will make an attempt to put the fire out if the solar panels are on the roof. But he's right. It's an electrically charged situation. You start spraying water on solar panels, that's not good. It's electricity. It flows back through the hose and it hits the firemen. It's the same thing with electrical vehicles, EV vehicles driving down the road. They have battery packs. They have an extreme health hazard as to hurting the emergency personnel that show up at the accident. You have if it does enough, if it's a big collision, it could the heavier vehicle might actually outwin the combustion vehicle because it's twice as heavy, and that issues too. So you might be a little safer in the electric vehicle, but you're definitely might get a kill because of the impact of that extra weight into another vehicle. Might do a lot more damage to the other vehicle than your own. I don't know that to be true. I haven't done any safety things, but it's a consideration. But anyway, the electric vehicles are health hazards, life hazards to emergency personnel showing up at an auto accident with an EV vehicle. Oh, time to charge. We talk about fast charging vehicles. Well, I've come to learn that fast charging comes with a price. It generally, for most batteries, maybe not all batteries, but from what I have learned, fast charging definitely degrades the batteries packs generally at a faster rate, and then they don't, over a shorter period of time, retain a charge as long, or don't charge as high as they might have in the past when you bought it new. So that is a serious concern as far as that as well, fast charging. Sounds good, right? We can get you on the road with 30% more of their vehicle so you can drive an extra 30 miles after a 20-minute charge. But, you're going to be stopping again somewhere else for another fast charge. And it's degrading your battery pack. Oh, so that's an issue with that too. I also found there's issues with charging stations. A lot of charging stations don't work. What used to be free because they wanted you to buy electric cars, they are now charging a fee for charging your vehicle. So, these people got to make money too. They got to repair these chargers. In fact, one of the videos I watched showed that it took anywhere from, it was a 50-50 chance or less that the charging station actually worked. Some of the cities are restricting how long you can charge. You can't park in a charge space if you're not actually charging. Or if your car is filled and you're still parked in a charge space, you're going to get a ticket because you're blocking somebody else from being in charge, charging their vehicles. Power grid. If we build all these build all these charge stations everywhere on city streets and in private parking lots and everything, what is that going to do to our electric grid? We're already having issues in a lot of states, especially California, with blackouts and stuff. How is this? You can't charge your vehicle unless it's nighttime, right? Because all businesses is closed. Everybody goes to sleep. So you can charge your car from 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. and then that's it, because you can't charge your vehicle. Because there's not any power to power the rest of the economy and the rest of the city and the rest of the world, because we're charging all these vehicles. Most of our electricity comes from coal and from oil right now, production. That's how our power plants are running. And with that said, what are we doing? We're creating more combustion CO2 gases into the air. Over the long run, they show that it washes, supposedly, but unless the price goes up for charging these things, I don't know what the comparison price is for a gallon of gas as to how many miles you're getting per charge out of your battery. But there's a fine line where it's going to be either cheaper to buy gas because now charging your vehicle costs so much to plug in somewhere. So you're going to have those issues too. Oh, insurance. I didn't even know about this, but I found out. Generally, electric cars are expensive to replace because they're so heavy, because they're so specialized, because there's not a lot of places you can get these cars fixed and so forth. Body panels are usually specialized. You can't buy a Tesla front panel or whatever from a specific on Amazon and stuff like that yet. Eventually maybe you can. But insurance is generally twice as much for an EV vehicle as its counterpart that's a combustible engine vehicle. I just paid $2,000 for my auto insurance to renew it for this next year for 3 cars. And a 2004 Dodge Dakota? Really? What is that worth? 2015 Jeep Wrangler? It's 9 years old. And a 2016, my wife's car, 2016 Camry. Same thing. It's old too. $2,000 a year for those 3 vehicles here in Las Vegas. Would I want to pay $4,000 a year if I changed just one, or all of those vehicles, it's crazy. Auto insurance is crazy in Nevada. It's probably, at least in the Las Vegas area, it's probably one of the worst areas in the country. My opinion, I don't know everywhere, but it's definitely worse than California, where I came from. Range is an issue, being able to travel in that car. That's why Hertz, who was all in on electric vehicles, is selling probably 90% of their electric vehicles, because people that are taking long trips. My sister is renting a vehicle to drive to Utah on a vacation. They're not going to drive their own vehicle. They're getting a rental car. I've used Turo, where I've rented out my own vehicle, and I stopped because there's no money in it. The compatible price of what they're charging for a rental car and so forth, what I'm getting back, and the wear and tear on my vehicle, because they're all driving distances. I put on 4,000 miles on my Jeep in 2 months, and I had two major repairs on the Jeep for about $1,500, and I rented it, I think, 3 or 4 times, and I made about $500 on those deals. So I'm down $1,000 just on maintenance on the Jeep alone, as opposed to making any money. So it's like, I don't think I even want to do Turo anymore. Locations to charge, we talked about that, whether it's on the city street, whether it's at a charging station, whether it's at your home. It's not going to be free, and it's not easy. Insurance, I already talked about that. Weight on the roads. I read a story about how EVs are damaging our roads. Because of that extra weight, they're wearing out their tires faster. We talked about that. But they're also doing damage to roads because of the heavier weight on these vehicles. The wear and tear is significant on some roads. Probably most of your city roads that are asphalt, meaning the blacktop type of roads. That extra weight does put some stress on blacktop roads that a normal vehicle would not put as much stress on. Longevity. I heard early that batteries lasted up to about 5 years. Now I hear their manufacturers are warrantying them for 8 to 20 years, depending on the type of battery pack. But as we talked about, quick charging them is a problem with battery packs. I've heard how they're recycling some of them into kind of a home use, where you have solar panels and you need a battery pack. So they're putting these old battery packs in houses to use as charge stations to run electric power there. Sounds like a good way of taking an old battery pack that's maybe only holding 60 to 80% of its power and reutilizing it in a different way for another 5 to 10, 15 years before it's totally worthless and has to be replaced. So that sounds like a good idea, right? The rare materials that come out of these batteries, there's still not quite an efficient way to recycle these materials. And in fact, I'm going to talk about China here and show a quick video. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but how China's it's the largest electric car producer in the world. Yeah, right. It's because they're building them, then they're registering them, and then they're just parking them in these open spaces. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of vehicles. It makes China the #1 electric car producer in the world. But their cars are just rotting away. And I seriously doubt they pulled the battery packs out of these vehicles, because they're all registered in China. Anyway, I'll show you that in a minute. Oh, let's see. Air pollution, we already talked about, the mining of these facilities, what they're doing to the people in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where 70% of the world's cobalt is mined. Terrible health hazards there. And why should we support a vehicle that's killing people, even if it's in Africa or any part of the world? Because they're black, it's okay? It's not okay. And the lady that was that I did a week or 2 weeks ago from the UN, the human rights lady, she should be in Africa fighting for the Congo right now and for these people. Why is she a teacher at UCLA spewing hate and of racism all over the place? She should be fighting for that. Waste in China, of course. We're going to get to that in a second. Battery life currently 8 years to 20, depending on that. We already talked about that. Cycles. Mineral depletion before 2050. There you go. Rare minerals. They talked about in that one of the videos that we just talked about the Thacker mine, about that mine lasting for 40 years, building 80,000 or producing 80,000 tons, about 15% of the current world's. Where they're talking about one of the videos, I think they said it might be that same one, where they said we're going to need an additional 74 lithium mines producing this amount to get us up to speed to take care of the world's needs. They call these rare minerals, rare materials, for a reason, because there's not that many of them. So which means they're going to be there. We're going to get through this stuff pretty fast. I think we're looking at maybe somewhere between the use of this, we're looking at maybe a 40 to possibly tops 80 years of these minerals before they're totally gone and depleted. The cost of them is going to increase exponentially because countries like China and Russia that have some have large deposits, or they're doing their colonialization by buying these large deposits in. I'll show you a list. In some of these countries, not only their own but all over the world, they're buying the ownership or the rights to these minerals and so forth. So you don't think they're going to string or put a little string around it and say, this is all we're producing. It's like oil at OPEC. That's what's going to happen with rare minerals, especially for batteries. Oh, you can bet it's coming that way. Production, processing. And we just talked about the to expand the lithium mines. Now let's talk about China real quick. They are the threat to the world, a huge threat, if you didn't know that. Yes, which one is this? I do not know. All right. I think it's not there. There. This is the one we want. All right, I found the video. So here we go. What happened? There we go. Let me see if I can make it big for the screen. So here's China. They build most of the world's EV cars. So they want you to believe. Another propagandic lie. They talk about China producing, they're still producing coal factories at an exponential rate. In fact, one of the videos, I think I started it, but I'll bring it back up in a minute, talks about China and the world's use of power and who's got the most CO2 emissions, which is China. We are a distant second, I think, at this point. If you would have replaced us back in the 1960s or 50s, 60s, and maybe 70s, and maybe early 80s, we would have been the #1 polluter of the world, but that is now China. All right, so let me blow this up. It is blown up. It is ready to go. And here's China. I don't know if we'll watch the whole thing. It's almost 2 minutes long, so we'll probably cut. But you'll be able to go back. Let me just take this down a little bit so you can actually get the website off of there. So, bam, there it is. You can see the YouTube. It's on YouTube right here. The name of the video is China is throwing away fields of electric cars, letting them rot. All right. With that said, we're going to watch this video, at least a portion of it. And here we go. Right.
满场地的新能源，1万台车。
The world's first titanium nonstick pan. It's gonna blow your hair back. I'm Mike Pagale, 3 Michelin chef.
满场地的新能源，1万台车。
This is a field of over 10,000 Neta V Chinese EV cars that are rotting away.
600多台啊，21年的，都是50公里以内啊。
And this man has just exclaimed that these BYD cars, all 2021 models, have less than 31 miles on them. Just like that field of 10,000 cars, they all have license plates on them, they're all fully registered, and they've been put away to rot. Yes, all of these cars have been left to rot. Why on earth is China throwing away entire fields of electric cars? By now, we've all heard that China's EV sales are outpacing the rest of the world. You'll see the headlines that say, China is now the leader in EV sales, and Tesla's got to watch out, and all this other nonsense. Well, guess what? It's true, the numbers are true, but what you're not taking into consideration is that China is the land of shortcuts and facades, and all of these cars that you're seeing in this field, well, they're counted in those numbers. Let me explain to you what's going on. Should be around... Yes, I love my extra wallet.
This is really nice. I never expected this. And so I can chuck that big wallet of mine now. This is fantastic.
Guy throws a commercial in the middle of his video.
So my dad really likes his extra wallet.
Yeah, so we're going to skim through that. Yes.
And the BYDs and the bigger brands that you see huge amounts of them just parked out to rot. Well, you see, that's because they need the numbers. In order to get subsidies from the government, in order to put out the sales figures that they've sold more than Tesla and that they're leading in EV production and EV sales, they need to have these fake sales. So BYD themselves will register them and put them on the market and then claim that they've been sold. And then, of course, they've got all those excess cars and they just stick them in a field. And
you can make history tomorrow.
But there's a bigger problem. There are even more car graveyards. And that has to do with this stupid investment scheme. Let me explain. In China, very often you get these fly-by-night investment schemes. Someone comes up with a good idea like bicycle sharing, for instance. And guess what? People jump on the bandwagon. They raise a bunch of investment capital. They start a company. We saw it go absolutely crazy with the shared bicycle schemes. We covered this on the China show where we showed these mountains of bicycles that had been discarded because the companies knew that if they pumped these bikes out, they'd keep getting investment. So they just kept pumping them out, even when it wasn't financially viable, because like a Ponzi scheme, you just keep getting your investment money in, and all of these bike companies pretty much shut down except for two. And a lot of the people that started these bike companies ran away with the investment money, never to be seen again. The bicycle sharing schemes kind of came to an end in late 2018. And then suddenly, and because the bicycle sharing investment scheme had now disappeared, people stepped in with a new investment scheme for shared vehicles. And this time it was for electric cars. Now, there's this fantastic video, which I'm going to link below in the description. You can see it in the background here. But there's a documentary filmmaker who went and took drone footage of the shared bikes. And he made this video called No Place to Place in 2018, where he showed all of these massive mountains of the shared bike failures. But he then went in 2019 to film the fields of abandoned electric vehicles. So this is No Place to Place 2. And what you're seeing are these fields of shared cars. You see, the idea, like shared bicycles, would be that you have an app. And if you need a car, you can look in your app and see, oh, there's a shared car nearby, a shared electric vehicle. And you go and you unlock it with your app and you can drive to your destination and then lock it again. It's actually a very nice idea. It's not a bad idea at all. But of course, because it's all a money grab and it's a ridiculous scheme and a Ponzi scheme type situation in China, they just pump these things out without doing proper market research, without actually seeing if it was viable or not. And so the end result is fields and fields of thousands of hundreds of thousands of abandoned vehicles that are now going to rot. Now, this is where it gets insidious. These cars are electric vehicles. And that means they have batteries in them. So not only have you created a lot of waste by developing cars that are not going to be used and that are going to be left to rot, I mean steel and glass and liquids and chemicals and all the rest that goes into it, but the batteries. Everybody knows that these electric batteries that are used in electric vehicles are incredibly complicated and require a lot of very dangerous mining and chemical processes to create. There are human rights atrocities attached to making these batteries, if you want to look into it. Child labor, slave labor, that kind of thing. But the detriment to the earth in mining all of these chemicals and all of the materials needed to create these electric vehicle batteries is just insane. So now you've created all of this environmental damage to make these cars, and then you just let them rot in a field. And of course, now they're going to create even more environmental damage because they're going to sit there for however long with all of these chemicals and batteries in them and all the rest of it. And
wow. Right? I was in Hawaii, I think, a year and a half ago. We went to, and we were staying at a hotel, or it was actually a timeshare condo. And at this location, they had 2 vehicles where you could actually like reserve it for the day. There was a small fee associated with it, but you could take the vehicle based on how many hours you were going to do it, and they charge a certain rate. But there you go, vehicle sharing. I never really thought about that. Turo, I mean, Turo is real. I'm a victim of it to some aspect. I think you can make money through that, but you have to rent to people that are not going to overly drive your vehicle all over the world. Put on a ton of miles on your vehicle, and unless your intent to do that. But the maintenance from my end, for me, from what I've learned, is much higher to maintenance and maintain the vehicle than I was getting from rental. And I rented it at least 3 or 4 times. Like I said, cost me $1,500 in maintenance fees, and I made maybe $500 minus the 3,000 plus miles put on my car. So anyway, I wanted to show you one last thing, then we're going to kind of wrap this up because we've been going for too long. Let's see if I can find it. Which one was it? It was... Oh, I want to bring you back to my main document. That's what I want to do. My main document, which is here. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of it here. Actually, so I wanted to just go over the countries that are kind of like in control of our future. When we look at electric batteries and the 4 main components, the lithium, the cobalt, the nickel, and the manganese that goes in to create these electric batteries. It's just like oil and OPEC. Whoever owns the resource is going to control the market and control the cost, and can, just like OPEC decides we're reducing production and it raises oil prices, or we're increasing production, and so they make more money that way because they increase the production and they make more because they're selling them more. Those that control the minerals, the raw materials to make these batteries, are going to do the same. And China is the global leader in taking minerals that are all over the world and taking them and controlling them. Some of these governments are just going to have to say, sorry, China, we're cutting you off. But here we go. Top 6 countries with lithium reserves right here, I think. And then we have cobalt, we have manganese, and we have nickel deposits. Let's just look at a few of those real quick, if we can. Pop that back up for you. So we could see right here the 6 top countries with lithium reserves. And those would be Bolivia. This is the triangle they talked about down in South America. So Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile, they control that. But as they just said, Russia and China controls most of that lithium production that's there. The United States, probably because of that Thacker mine that we just talked about right there. So we're somewhat in good there. Australia, for now they're on our side. And then China. So China also has large lithium production facilities, or control a lot of the lithium. So China controls the 4.5 there. Plus, you got to say they're going to control the Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia. So they control 2/3, if not more, of the world's lithium reserves. Let's look at cobalt. Cobalt, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has 70%. Australia, which is good on our side. And then Cuba, number 3. Philippines, Russia, not good. And Canada, right? So Canada's on our side. Russia's not. Philippines, kind of wobbler. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Cuba is definitely not on our side. Australia, which is good. And then the Democratic Republic of Congo, which they just said in the videos, if you watched, China owns most of the mineral rights in the Congo. So they own most of the 70% of the world's reserves in that mineral. Let's look at the next one. Manganese, South Africa, which unfortunately was on the right side of the world, but has slowly moved to the wrong side of the world. They are moving closer to China, Russia, India, and Brazil, and communist, totalitarian. So you can see South Africa has the most, so that's not good for us per se. Ukraine, that means Russia's going to control that mineral. Brazil, which I just said, is now moving towards that side, the left. That's not good. Australia, thank goodness. India is also moving slightly that way, towards the left. China is right there. I'm not sure where Gabon and Ghana is in Africa. I don't know who owns those rights. Kazakhstan is a former Soviet Union republic on the south part of Russia. I don't know what their affiliation is with Russia or China, but that's not strategically in a good location for us. And then Mexico, yay! Well, Mexico's actually moving a little bit left as well towards totalitarianism, communism. So that may not necessarily be good for us as well. The last one is nickel. Let's look at that. Top 6, Indonesia. Muslim countries mostly down there, moving more towards the left, towards China a little bit. Some of the countries there are in that region are Muslim, and some of them are communist, like Vietnam. Not necessarily a good thing. Australia, which is good for us. Brazil, kind of moving again towards China and Russia. Russia, not good. And Cuba, not good. Philippines, kind of a wishy-washy one in the center. And there you have it. So you can see China, Russia, and their conglomerate of countries, plus their buying of these mineral rights in other countries. It's modern-day colonialism, stealing the resources of another country to make it your own. You can see is going to be a major issue in creating these lithium batteries in the future. You should be aware of this. It's not just about the environmental hazards that are out there and the slavery and the other things that are going on in the Congo, the loss of water and the people that are living in northern Nevada as opposed to Chile and opposed to in Australia that are digging up these lithium mines and using the water to bring that brine and the fresh water out to just let it evaporate so they can get to the minerals. There's a lot of issues we need to discuss and figure out. It's not as clean and simple as just drive an electric vehicle and you'll save the planet. And well, the one video, I think it was, I don't know if it was this one, but here's another one. I don't remember exactly what this one was about, but I think it's this one. This guy's pretty good. It's a half-hour video, but he goes through a lot of stuff. I would definitely recommend you watch this video. Oh, sorry, you can't see it. I would definitely recommend that you watch this video right here because he's really good. He goes through a lot of the pluses and minuses. Talks about how CO2s from cars make up it's only like 16% of the gases that are going into the Earth's atmosphere. 16%. It's a lot, yeah. But when you think about all the other pollution that's coming out of the mining of these batteries and so forth and so on, and materials for them, and how we are currently powering them through coal and oil and so forth, it's a wash for some of it. It's just not going to make that much of a difference. So watch this video. He is really good, very good about it. Probably one of the better ones that cover the vast lie of it. I would definitely recommend you watch this video. Highly highly recommend it. He breaks it down for you pretty good. Does a really good job at it. As a matter of fact, this might be one of the best videos for you that I found for you to see and watch. All right.
President Biden's policies are getting things
so
done.
That said, I think I'm going to finish up.
So we can too.
Way too long today.
Creating.
Let me shut that off. Been way too long today. Where are you on electric cars? Well,
there's nothing more powerful than you.
I'll tell you right now, for me, it's I'm not totally opposed to electric cars. I am opposed to the environmental things that are happening in Africa. I'm opposed to who controls the materials now and where it's going to be going in the near and distant future. Remember, this is only a 40 to maybe 60, 80 year max supply of minerals and materials that are going to be around. What's next after that? I did some research into hydrogen. Hydrogen, you run into a similar problem. It's much cleaner, but you're going to run into some issues there. There's 3 different methods of creating electricity through hydrogen. One is a very expensive, but also the best way of producing power that's totally clean. But you have to mine these materials too. They are very rare materials too, for the most part. So you might do 40, 50 years of this one, then you're going to do 40 or 50 years of that one. And then where's man? Again, I do not know. EVs are not for me. There's just too many issues. I'm on the last leg of my life, the last couple vehicles of my life anyway. Just find a good carbon vehicle that's inexpensive to maintain, inexpensive that has good emissions in it, and you're going to be probably just as secure for the next 10 to 15 years or more than what the current technology of electric vehicles. Plus, I don't feel like I'm hurting anybody in Africa, especially in the Congo, or those people that are living in South America in that triangle area, or my neighbors up north in Nevada. So with that said, do your own research. This is The Truth is Simple. I'm Dave Corum, your host, and we'll see you next time, I guess, on what we're going to talk about. There is a lot. I might be rebringing or rehashing up the demonstrations, the pro-Hamas demonstrations, which I talked about last October. You can go back and watch season 1. I don't remember which episode, but it talks about Hamas and it talks about Israel and so forth. They're also talking again about Joe Biden. The demonstrations is what we're talking about, that first one. But they're also, I heard yesterday, Joe Biden's thinking about throwing some Palestinians on a plane, some Hamas Palestinians on a plane and settling them here in the United States. No. Don't go for that, people. You can stand up and say no on that. We don't know who these people are. Oh, they all might be very good. They're Hamas Christians, right? Or whatever. No, don't bring them here. None of the Arab countries are taking these people. Why, as the United States, especially with what's going on here right now at our colleges and universities, why would we be so stupid to take these people? We're just bringing more terrorists into our country. Same with the ones coming across the border. Very few of them are probably running away from political reasons. They're coming here to hurt us. And Joe Biden, you need to go away. And I hope Trump wins the election, but we'll see if he even makes it into the presidency. The Democrats are going to throw they're not Democrats, the communists are going to throw they call themselves Democrats, but they're communists, are going to throw everything they have to put him in jail, to do away with him, or whatever, to make sure he doesn't take office and that they stay in power. So they can continue the move towards totalitarianism. All these things that are happening at our colleges and universities right now, it's because of the left. They are destroying America. They could care less about you, me, our children, and the citizens of this country. They are communists. They are terrorists. They are the problem with what America says. The FBI says it's white people or men or these organizations are the extremists. They are the extremists. Time for us to all wake up. With that said, I'm done ranting and raving. Don't buy an EV vehicle. I'm not going to buy an EV vehicle anytime soon. unless they force me to. And they're definitely moving that way, right? Just cut off the gas. You can't find gasoline anymore, and you're going to have to buy an electric vehicle if you want to drive and get around. Oh, one last thing. EVs, why are they doing it too? To limit your ability to move around the country. Why else? Right? Why else? Why did Hertz get rid of all their cars? Because nobody wanted to drive cars that they couldn't drive anywhere in, like my Jeep on Turo. You know, drive to southern Utah and back. Take a gas. There they got to charge 2 times there and back, plus, or 3 times, plus an extra 2 or 3 hours of charging time. So nobody wants that. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time. If you liked what you heard, then hopefully you will share this with somebody else, and we'll see you next week. Bye.